Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله تعالى. Let's start inshallah. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. We start in the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful. And we bear witness there is no deity worthy worship except Allah. Praise and glory be to Him. And that Muhammad is the seal of messengers. He was sent as a mercy to all mankind. May peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, his family, his companions, and those who followed his path until the day of judgment. I greet you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all, dear brothers and sisters and dear viewers. This is the Dr. Abdul Aziz, your host on the A2Z show after an interruption. And of course, I pray to Allah you are well, inshallah, and fit as well, the best in your iman and your health and wealth in this difficult situation.
Inshallah.
And Allah give a quick recovery for those people who have been infected with this virus as well. And I went to the hospital myself, and it is one of the nurses told me that a lot of youngsters are now being infected with this virus as well, who have no vaccination.
That's right. It's not just an old man's thing, it's a young man's thing as well now.
It's easy for them, inshallah. And with the beginning of the university, Manchester will be increased about 50,000, hopefully, students. And therefore, they come from different corners of the world as well. So we have to take it very easy with those people. And then they have to follow all the guidelines for the COVID-19 as well, masks, distancing, and vaccination as well, and tests if you are in doubt of any symptom about that. And of course, there are people who passed away as well, but we send our mercy. May God
Allah give them Jannah, inshallah,
and forgiveness, inshallah, be of them and give them the highest firdaus in paradise, and give their families and friends and relatives
inshallah
patience and a great reward. And of course, we follow what has happened in Afghanistan, explosions as well. And
we have a lot of things to discuss, and a very short time to discuss them in. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you're going to enjoy the program.
Right, and inshallah, therefore, I think we start with usually a few 10 minutes about the Friday pulpit, yani, and it's national. Yes. Therefore, I was in a mosque, the Mawlawi Mosque in next to Loreto College, and the topic was about dhikr and the virtues of remembering Allah, and he spoke about the virtues of recitation of the Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Surah Al-Ikhlas, and Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq, Surah Al-Masad, or Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas, Surah Al-Nas, chapter 112 and 113, 114, and how the Prophet ﷺ used to teach his companion as well. Sometimes they are very small, you can finish them in 3 minutes, but their virtues for health, especially when you do them in the morning and you blow in your hands and you just wipe your head and your body 3 times with it. That's ruqya, we call it, protection and for cures as well. So therefore, he gave the importance of dhikr, and of course, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah akbar. Those are offers, and this is very, very important. And we finish always the khutbah of wala dhikrullahi akbar. Therefore, and everything we remember is the greatest things you do by remembering your Creator. Have you been to any mosque yourself?
Actually, I was at Disney Mosque, yes, and quite an interesting khutbah. It was about how to give advice to children, how to give them nasiha, and I thought, well, this works both ways. Sometimes children need to give nasiha to elders. Maybe they're doing something wrong or whatever. How do they actually correct them? So I'll talk a little bit about both. The first one, of course, is what I heard today, and it kind of concentrated on the advice that Luqman gave to, I think he was a prophet, perhaps, or he was a wise man.
As a prophet, some people. Or wise man, yes.
What he said to his son, and of course that's mentioned in the Quran about worshipping Allah and fearing Allah, etc. And of course that is the best advice that we can give to our children on a regular basis. But of course, how to be better human beings, how, why and how we need to stay away from, especially the kabair, the major sins about zina, alcohol, gambling. These are the things, of course, killing and stuff.
Alcohol.
Yes, I mentioned that. And therefore, the main things, we need to emphasize them, because if we don't emphasize them, especially in the environment our children are growing up in, who's going to tell them that, for example, alcohol or zina, which are very, very much part of the society, are haram? We have to tell them, and then we have to keep reminding them and emphasizing and explaining to them why these are haram as well. Because they are normal in society. For example, having a girlfriend is just normal as nowadays. And if you have a girlfriend, then zina becomes the normal, natural thing to do. Astaghfirullah. But that's the reality. That's the society we're living in, not just in Britain, but the whole of Europe. And wherever there is any influence of Western culture, that is what's happening. Zina is something very, very common, unfortunately, whether it's fornication or it's adultery. So that is a sort of nasiha, the reminder we need to be giving them. We need to be reminding them to read the Quran regularly, and of course understand the Quran and also the Sunnah, and to love the Prophet ﷺ, with all our heart, and therefore to emulate him, to copy him in what he said we should do. And of course, Imam Ghazali, he is, I think he's written a book on my son, giving his son advice on how to live life, generally speaking. And that's a really good way of educating. Sometimes we don't like to be told what we can and cannot do. Yeah. But if we listen in and we know that the advice or whatever is not directed directly at us, we are more likely to pay attention to it, because it's not directed directly at us. And of course, children are intelligent, once they get to about 7, 8, they understand what you're trying to say to them, generally speaking. And so giving them good advice, they will understand it, even if it's indirect. I have my own way of actually doing this. It's not to speak directly to them. If I want to talk about girlfriends and boyfriends, I want to talk about alcohol, about homosexuality, about any issue at all with children, which we have to nowadays, because it's all around us, and they know about these things, even though we don't want them to know about these things. That's just the way it is. Even in cartoons, you're getting gay characters and lesbian characters and all sorts, and now transsexual characters. They're trying to brainwash our children from a very early age. So we need to talk to our children and make clear to them what is halal and what is haram, and really help them to guard themselves from the negative and haram influences of society. And of course, that is exactly what taqwa is. It is to be conscious of the society you're living in, and then to guard yourselves from the haram elements of that society. So that's the kind of the way to approach children with nasiha. Not always to tell them directly. We are living in a society where that doesn't always go down too well, but to just appeal to their intelligence and common sense, and pray to Allah that what we are saying impacts them on their hearts.
And you spoke very important that sometimes the parents always speak to their children like they're still young and they don't know things. Do you think that you have to speak to them properly at the proper age?
Exactly, and that's a very, very important point. You see, you and me, we will see our 20 and 30 and 40-year-old children. Well, mine aren't 40 yet, almost. And we will always see them as our children. And we don't realize they're not little kids anymore. We can't talk to them as we used to talk to them when they were, 8 years of age. We have a certain way of speaking to our, 5-year-olds. And then we have a certain way of speaking to our 8-year-olds. You can't use the same methodology because the child is maturing, is growing up. And once they get to about 10, they're really transitioning between child and adulthood. And so by the time they get to maybe 14, 15, they really are well within the, I'm a man now, so talk to me as a man, don't talk to me as a child. That's the attitude of a child. So if we still keep talking to them as though they were little children, they are going to resent it. They will not like it at all. So we need to understand that. And that's why the Prophet said, 777. Verse 7, you basically teach them right and wrong, because
I think this hadith is not, but I think the meaning is right. To play with them for 7 years and educate them what's right.
No, exactly. He emphasized the 3 sevens. I'm not saying that was a particular hadith calling 777. But yes, and the first 7 is just right and wrong, because that's all they understand. They don't understand logic up to the age of 7. At the age of 7, the logic starts to come in. Before that, their judgment is based on perception. Play. Yes. Well, play, but also giving them an understanding of right and wrong, to help them to understand this is right, this is wrong, so that they are developing that sense of right and wrong. That morality is built.
Framework.
Yes, exactly the framework. Once they reach around 7, some children will be just before 7, some will be just a little bit after, a few months after 7, and I noticed that with my own children. Then you can appeal to their intelligence, to their logic, their reasoning, and then you can start explaining why something is right and why something wrong, and why they should behave in this way, and they will understand it. And so you start educating them from, as the Prophet said, from 7 to 14. That's when the educational stuff comes in. And then from 14 to 21, he said, make friends with them. Again, emphasizing to us that you cannot treat your children, talk to them in the same way, irrespective of what age they are. It's very, very important that we understand this very important thing.
Okay, that's inshallah what we do. Let's have just a short break. Yes, and then inshallah we come back about what, the 5. I think we come back about 10 because minutes. I think you need. Okay, I think we give you about 15 minutes to sort yourself out. Yeah.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.